Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. I just want to make sure that each and every one of you know that by being here today, you are on a special watch list from the IRS. You know, we laugh about that. But I'm going to get really heavy right away on this. It really isn't funny, is it? And it isn't funny that over and over again, this administration has been pushing the limits on how much information they can take about the average citizen in our country, how much they can listen to our phones, how much they can document who we are, what we like, how we raise our children, and then at the same time advocating giving more and more authority to unelected people in Washington, D.C. Is that a formula for losing our freedom, or isn't it? It's time for us, and this is what you're doing by being here today, to draw the line in the sand, and this time we mean it. We mean that the federal government, I don't care if it's a Republican in charge, but especially when we have this man in charge, who we have no idea what he really believes in, but we will not permit the federal government to encroach 1 inch further on our rights as Americans. And that's what this is all about. Let me remind you of the first what? Indication of what kind of government we were going to have and that we're going to have to deal with. This president, the very first issue he talked about was how horrible it was in Mexico because of the guns that were coming to Mexico from the United States. You remember that? I remember hearing his administration talking about, well, what was that all about? Why did he do that? At that moment, his attorney general was sending thousands of weapons to the drug cartels in Mexico to back up those words. What was he trying to do? He was trying to diminish the constitutional protection that we all have to keep and bear arms, and he was trying to make sure that those of us along in the southern borders would be tainted. Oh, you've got to give up your freedom or diminish it in order to stop all this trouble down in Mexico. So what we had was a conspiracy to deny us our constitutional rights, and that was his very first operation as President of the United States, and it has gone downhill since then. We will lose our freedom unless we are active. Today, you are declaring that you are an activist. Today, you are declaring you're part of a team that's going to retake this country, and we're going to reestablish some fundamentals. And I know that some even of my Republican friends get mad at me when I insist that the federal government should not have all the power in our governments, that there is a thing called the 10th Amendment, and the states have rights to handle all the criminal matters that deal with us as human beings and as citizens of this country. The Founding Fathers never wanted the federal government to have a police force. And now we find that there are police forces in almost every government agency. And they feel the right to come in and tell us what we're going to do, or find out some evidence that can give them leverage over our lives. We have reached a turning point in our country. This is a turning point, and we have got to recapture those fundamentals. Again, some of you probably didn't agree with me when I led the fight recently that said that if a state government votes to permit the legal use of medical marijuana, that it is not the right of the federal government to come and interfere with the people of that state and their right to set their own criminal law. If we do not hold firm to a principle, that principle, the 10th Amendment principle that our founding fathers laid down, Don't expect other people to take us seriously when we have a 10th Amendment argument. For example, is there any reason that any of us believe that the federal government should be taking our money and then forcing us to beg to get it back so we can run local schools? And as we're begging the federal government to give us back money that was taken from here, they say, oh, well, you can get it back, but you've got to do it exactly the way we tell you. It's as if they believe that that's federal money. The first thing I say when kids come to Washington, D.C., and they visit my office, I say, have you seen the federal money pits? No, no, no. How about the money trees where all the money grows off the trees? The $1,000 bills. That's where the federal money grows. And then they realize that there are no federal money trees. And there is no federal money pit. The federal money pit is your pocket. They are taking the money out of your pocket and then making us beg to get it back. We are the ones who should be running the local police. We are the ones who should be running the local schools. We should be the ones setting what is wrong and what is illegal and what is not and what is acceptable behavior for our own communities. That's what freedom is all about. And there are scheme after scheme after scheme to try to get us to give up our freedom. And I know some people are going to get mad at me for this. But the bottom line is, I've been attacked recently even by the President of the United States. Global warming is a fraud. It is worse than a fraud. It is worse than a fraud because we're being told that CO2 that we, and human behavior that creates CO2 is changing the climate of the planet. Now, the reason this argument is being made is to excuse them and give them an excuse to control our behavior. That's all it is. If indeed human behavior is changing the climate, thus we should have a right to control human behavior. Let's put that in words for it. Then we have a right to take away your freedom and tell you what to do. That's what it's all about. And the worst part of it is these people are allied with people who want global government. Not only are they going to have the federal government telling us what will be legal and illegal, but we're going to have a government in Brussels or maybe in some other wonderful democratic country like China telling us what to do. When I tell the kids who come to visit me, look, you don't want to give any power to the United Nations like this because the United Nations, the majority of countries in the United Nations are run by lunatics and criminals. Our government isn't quite that bad. Not quite that bad. But the fact is, we know that these governments in the United Nations are brutalizing their own people. We know there's no freedom of speech and in many cases no freedom of religion in these countries. We know that today, even as we speak, many of these other countries are persecuting Christians for wanting to believe in God and worship God. Well, the last thing we want to do is to give power to an organization internationally that has a majority composed of those type of governments. It comes down to this. Our founding fathers talked about inalienable rights that are granted to each person, each one of us, each individual by God. It's not, they were trying to get away from the idea that God was granting rights to the king or to government. It's to us. And what do we have? The fact is, the government only has those rights that are given to it and those powers that are given to it by the consent of the governed. We are the people of this country, and we are reclaiming our freedom and our liberty, and we are reclaiming our rights to set what criminal law and every other kind of law will be implemented starting from the bottom up and not imposed from a top-down clique in Washington, D.C. And we're talking about across the board here, where you have got the government, and what happens when you give big government all this power? What happens? You have very powerful interest groups that are at play who will make sure that our choices are taken away from us. Now, there's a big issue, for example, and I know that, again, I'm making certain people mad when I say this, but there is a legitimate concern with some people about GMOs and gluten and other things in the food. And I am not about to say that we should outlaw that. But I will fight to the death to say the American people have a right to see that on the label and make their own decisions as to what they're going to put in their bodies. Do we believe in the freedom that our founding fathers believed in? Do we believe that individual liberty is the goal? Or do we have other things that supersede that? We've gone too far. And I will tell you right now that over the years, I followed, for example, I followed George W. Bush into Iraq. And I think that was a mistake. I think that was a mistake, and it was $1 trillion spent, and $1 trillion spent, 6,000 of our young people dead, murdered, families that will never have their parents back, or their dad back. 25, 30,000 people who are suffering because of this. Was that worth it? No, it wasn't. And it was wrong for us to deploy large numbers of Americans overseas unless it specifically was aimed at securing the United States of America. And I have thus been not voting to reinsert any troops, and have been opposing reinserting any troops in Iraq whatsoever. We should be getting our butts out of that country. And I would say this, let's recognize the Kurds. Let's let them have their government, but let's let the other guys kill themselves as far as I'm concerned. Ronald Reagan, who I had the honor of serving with, learned his lesson. He sent Marines into Beirut. Do you all remember that, when he sent the Marines into Beirut? And I remember when I heard the Marines were going in, I went down to the National Security Council people and said, what the hell is going on here? We got a few thousand Marines. This isn't 1958. There you're putting them in the middle of this cauldron, and you have militias that are stronger than the Marines all over this place. What are you doing? And they said, look, there's some political stuff going on here, and decision, you know, there have been deals made, and don't worry, Dana, it's all going to work out. And we know that if the Marines are there, this person's agreed to do that, that person's agreed to do this, then this will happen, and then there's going to be peace in the Middle East because of that. And I said, you know, the chances of all those dominoes falling like that is about 1 in 100. You know what the chances of this turning into a fiasco is? They said, well, and I said, 50-50. I hope we get through this. Well, a week later I found out that the Marines were prohibited from having bullets in their guns. Did you all know that? The Marines who were sent to Beirut were prohibited from having bullets in their guns. First principle should be, you do not send large contingents of troops anywhere if you do not permit them to have bullets in their guns, okay? That should be rule number one. So, and I went back to them and I said, look, this is insane. What are you talking? He said, well, you know, Marines might get trigger happy or whatever. What are you talking about? I mean, I'm literally talking to you the way I talk to them. This is insanity. You're going to have guys, people there without bullets in their guns, their targets? And the guy said, look, Dana, you know, Schultz was a Marine, and Weinberger was a Marine, and Jim Baker was a Marine. All of these leaders, they were former Marines. They're not going to let this order stand. You get out of here. You're not in the National Security Council. You're a speechwriter for the president. Get out of here. So, okay, I left. And then, what happened? Yeah, a terrorist drove his pickup truck filled with explosives right past a Marine guard post, The guards could not stop him because they did not have bullets in their guns, and the truck went right into the Marine compound and killed over 300 Marines. And I got the word on that, and I looked at the list, and the first name on the list was my brother's best friend, Sergeant David Battle, who I had gone down with my family right before Ronald Reagan was inaugurated, and had dinner with his family, and they were so happy that Ronald Reagan was president and I would be in his White House, and now he was blown to bits. And that's when I decided, made a major decision in my life that you have recognized or you wouldn't be here. And that is, I said to myself, I will never refrain for the rest of my life in being a pain in the ass if it means saving American lives. And I will add this, to that. I will never refrain from being a pain in the ass as long as we are preserving liberty and justice for the American people. And let me give you one more here, and I know this, some of my conservative friends are going to be upset with this. Last week, I voted not to give the excess military equipment that we have coming out of the Middle East to local police forces. Look, we need policemen riding in our neighborhoods on bicycles and Segways, being our friends, watching out for us. We do not need them in armored personnel carriers thinking that they are in hostile territory. We don't need that. We need to have a close, good relationship between police officers, but what we've done is this. We have ended up, the police and law enforcement used to be, in our country, law was protecting us from aggressing on each other, from rape, murder, robbery. That's what the police were there for. And that's why policemen were respected. And they were part of the family of the community. But then what did we do? We changed the nature of the job of the policeman. The policeman now is not there just to protect us from somebody hurting us. He's there to enforce the law. And then if you increase what the law is telling us how to live our lives, you have put the police into a hostile relationship with the citizenry. That's not what we should be doing. That's not the way America was all about. Conservatives, liberals, left-wingers, right-wingers, all should understand we respect each other's rights, just like that's why we want criminal justice handled in the local level, so we can all talk about what's not going to be permitted in our city and what will be permitted in our city. That's how we're going to secure our freedom. And the last thing we want to do is to put the police and say, you're going to superimpose our values on everybody else, even to somebody who's not hurting anybody. And you're going to have to be the enforcer of aggressive laws and controlling other people's behavior. That is ridiculous. So with that said, we've got our job ahead of us because we have a president of the United States and a government that is composed of people who believe that all-powerful government is the solution to our problems. They believe in that. These people are honestly thinking that if you just give the government enough power and take it away from these selfish people who are making selfish decisions, like what's right for my family, that things will be better. Well, it won't be better. Things will get worse in every society that has tried that approach. It's failed. And that not only do people lose their freedom, but they lose their prosperity. We have got our job ahead of us. What we see with this IRA and the Benghazi thing was, how can they treat us this way? How can they turn around? We have our ambassador is murdered, 4 people lying there dead, and they're trying to tell us what we all know is a lie, an absolute lie. And you know what happened last week? So they told us that our ambassador was not was not killed by a terrorist attack. He was killed when a demonstration got out of hand. They kept repeating that. And our president repeated that. Unfortunately, we didn't have a candidate who was gutsy enough in the last election to shove it down their throats in the debate. Well, I can assure you we're going to get a candidate next time who's got that kind of guts. But what happened last week? Well, last week, they arrested the terrorist leader that was responsible for the murder in Benghazi. Wait a minute. I thought there wasn't a terrorist attack. How could there be a terrorist leader? He must have been just the leader of the nonviolent demonstration that got out of hand. Give me a break. I would now, I'm going like this. I'm sorry. I'm just sort of spouting off here, but I will tell you right now, other political people will tell you things and you really don't know what they really think. And even when there's an area where you disagree with me, you know what I think and you know what's in my heart, and I wear it on my sleeve, and that's all right. It's okay with me. And to the times we disagree, there are other areas where we can really agree. But the most important thing is that your representatives, your people that you're talking to, you have an honest dialogue to try to find out just how big we want and how powerful we want this institution of government to be in our society, and how free we want people to be, and where we want to set the rules. It should be in discussions like this, but if you don't talk to each other honestly, if you don't know if your elected official is actually being honest with you about something, how can we make those decisions? And well, I would hope that we Republicans look. I'll give you an example. Again, some people are going to be mad at me for this, but look. So I'm sitting there with the rest of our Republican colleagues at the conference meeting, all our Republican colleagues, and they're up there. Oh, how terrible it is! We got this crisis on the Mexican border now. See what Obama's done? He's created this crisis on the border. And the same guys or other guys are getting them going, oh my God, Obama's doing nothing in Iraq to counteract these terrorists. And I didn't know quite which side he was talking about, of course, what we were going to intervene on, because they're both terrorists there. And so I got up and I said, look, I don't want to, I didn't use the word turd in the punch bowl, but they knew that's what I meant. So I said, look, it sounds a little hypocritical for people who've been telling us that we need to legalize the status of people who are here illegally, and now to be complaining that there's a crisis on the southern border that Obama's not doing anything about. Anybody who advocated that shares the responsibility of the crisis on the border, especially people who supported, especially the people who supported the Dream Team. This whole dreamers thing, what does that mean? And I told them, for the last 6 months, I've been getting up going, look, if you keep talking about these dreamers, you're going to have thousands of people coming up, tens of thousands of people coming, kids are going to come here. And we're going to take care of them? And of course, it's exactly what happened. But now you got a group of people in the Republican Party who they just want to say bad things about Obama. Well, I'm telling you, any Republican that advocated the dreamers or advocated legalizing people who are here illegally share in that blame, and they should not be talking about it. And one last thing before I bring up the boss, and you know who the boss is, Rhonda. So Rhonda, are you here, I hope? Rhonda, we're going to bring you here. Come up here for a moment, Rhonda, okay. Because you know the boss. Okay. I want to make one last point, and then then I'm going to let Rhonda give some very important introductions. We got $500 billion a year we're spending more than we're taking in. $500 billion every year in debt. Now, I don't see the kids right here, but there's been a few little kids, 3 of them are mine, running around today. We are putting $500 billion in debt on their shoulders every year. Every year. They're going to have to pay it back. This is immoral. We are robbing future generations of Americans the right to have the money that they're going to need for their families, for their houses, for their health care, for their education. It's going to be spent right now. That's wrong. And the worst part of it is, it can't even last now because our currency will collapse if we keep this up. So how are we going to get out of this mess? We have some real champions here. We had Dan Gurney here earlier. Remember Dan Gurney, the great race car driver? Here's a man who excelled in so many ways when it came to automotive technology. It's technology that is going to create the wealth that we need to make sure that that $500 billion is not passed on to our children. We are going to produce more wealth, and we are going to do things more efficiently, and that's the way you do it. It can't be done by simply cutting government. We've got to cut government controls over those areas that prevent us from being efficient in the jobs that we have set out for ourselves. And if we do that, and we let people be efficient in getting their job done and get the government out of the way, and we develop the technologies that will put things to play, to work. Let me give you an example of some people. There'll be 2 of these kids. Are they here, by the way? Is anybody here from New Light? Okay. There's a company up here in Costa Mesa. I'm real proud of these guys. They're surfers, okay? I'm no problem. I got this arthritis in my shoulders, but I still wear my puka shells, so there you go. These guys went off to Princeton, and they got the top of their class, they're local boys, top of their class, and when they decided to come home to California to follow a dream rather than just cash in at Goldman Sachs, okay? They came here because they understood, some scientist said, you can actually take CO2 and methane out of the air and make something very valuable out of it. And they said, wow, we want to do that. We want to try to make that real. Well, they came back, and now, by the way, as you all are aware, as I just said, I think global warming, the CO2 theory is baloney. But I will tell you there's nothing wrong about taking CO2 out of the air, but especially it is a good thing to take methane out of the air because methane is actually harmful to people. So anyway, they're going to take the methane and the CO2 out of the air, and they succeeded. It took them 2 years, and by the way, if we'd have taxed away all their capital, they wouldn't have had the money to do this. But 2 years, and what do they end up with? They end up with a system where you put this air in the bottom of a tank of water. They put their mixture in, and they took them. It just experiment after experiment after they finally found the formula, and then what comes out is clean air, and this white stuff floating on the top of the water. They scoop it off. They put it into an industrial oven, and out comes an incredibly high quality plastic. Plastic that is. And if they want it to be biodegradable, they add a little something else. Plastic that it can be produced at 1/2 the price of the current cost of production of plastic. These guys are going to be trillionaires. But what's most important is they are going to permit our society to do things that are better without expending the same amount of wealth, so that we will then have wealth to do other things to improve our country. That's what it's all about. And our children will not be enveloped in debt if we encourage young people like this. Don't go with Goldman Sachs and put $1 million in your pocket every year and go on vacations and drink it up with your Mai Tais in Hawaii or wherever. No, spend your time going through, if you commit yourself to coming up with the items that will make our country more efficient and will produce more wealth and make people better. Al Mann is going to be with me at the dinner tonight. Do you know, raise your hand if you know Al Mann. Okay. Al Mann is, I'm going to say this tonight as well. He's a hero. He's my hero. And you know, I know a lot of people, so you know that when I say he is my, this man who was a navigator on a B-29 in 1945 at the end of the war, okay, he's 18 years old, and so he started off in a poor family, and this man has invented the diabetic pump, for example, that now almost all people who have diabetes have to use that pump. But he has also and he's made $1 billion on that. And instead of all, and that's just one. He perfected the cochlear implant so that deaf people can hear now. And he also is perfecting. He perfected, get into this, with his own money. He spent developing an arm for our military people who've lost their arms, that can be operated by the brain, by your, it's attached to the stump, and it's a hand that can go like this. This guy did this in all of his own money, and he has spent $1 billion trying to come up with an inhalant so that people who have diabetes won't have to use needles anymore. This guy has invested, and you know, for 5 years, he's had to spend an extra $500 million, and it's been off the market for 5 years because the FDA is making him jump through so many hoops. They are protecting us to death. And this is what when I talk about the government becoming an omnipresent part of our life. Most of the time, they're going to tell you they have to be part of our life to protect us. They're protecting us against Al Mann being able to sell us something that we could try out, and then if it didn't work, won't buy it again. No, that's not going to. It's got to prove that it works before you can try to sell it. And of course, they put him through so many hoops that I asked him, how much would this have cost just to protect the public? He said $500 million and perhaps 3 or 4 years. And instead, it's been over twice that long. We are the ones who are suffering. That's part of the $500 billion that we're going into debt. We can work our way out of it because we have the Al Manns of the world. We have the creative genius. We've got people who've come here from every part of the world, and because I'm against illegal immigration, no one should ever doubt that I believe in a robust legal immigration system. That's what we have right now. 1 million people from all over the world come in every year. That's more than all the rest of the countries combined. We can be proud of that. We know who they are. They can make contributions. They're not coming in a way that will be harmful to us, but instead positive towards us. We have people now who have come in to our country who are leading the technological revolution because in their own countries they don't have freedom. Well, I say that we as Americans, which includes every race and every religion and every ethnic group, we are the Americans, and we stand for freedom, and we stand for liberty, and we stand for human progress and prosperity, not just for the rich, but for all of us. And that's the society our founding fathers had in mind. Abraham Lincoln was not only the man who freed the slaves, but he was the author of the Homestead Act, which ensured that all of us had a right to own property. I want to thank each and every one of you. I'm sorry if I went on too long, but I am a person of strong beliefs, and just a couple thoughts about our country. And you know, when you look out over this, if you could see it from this direction, you'd see a most beautiful sight you've ever seen. I mean, you see this wonderful bay and the clouds and the sky and the beauty and the American flag here and the palm trees. And what a wondrous place that we live in. What a wondrous gift that God has given us and given humankind. But it's all up to us. We can turn this into some sort of a tyrannical, oppressive dirt hole or dirt pile, if that's what we want. Our founding fathers knew that we wouldn't let that happen. They didn't know who you are, but they knew when they took the stands that they did, that you would be here and you would step up and do your duty. It's all up to us now. On Memorial Day this year, I found the names of the 8 men that died as part of the militias at Lexington Green there in 1774, I believe it was. And these were the first American military personnel who gave their life. They were militiamen, and they were the ones who started Memorial Day, really, because we memorialize all those who gave their lives for us. Well, that day, if you remember that battle, first of all, you do have to remember that all of the militia guys were in a pub for hours waiting for the British to arrive. So they had lots of courage when the British troops marched up. And then after the fight, after the conflagration, they ran away. And they left 8 of their guys dead on the field. But when the word got out that day of what had happened, that there'd been a stand that was made, people from all over that part of the United States came rushing forward to do their duty. And by the end of the day, the British were totally routed and had turned into a magnificent victory for liberty, because people had made the stand and the real Americans rushed to be part of the fight to save their chance to live in freedom. We can do the same. We will make a stand, and if we do, the American people will rush to us. Because this wonderful thing that we see here, this was given to us by God, but it is humans working together, all of us Americans working together, that have built this magnificent magic place that we call America. And we will protect it, and the American people will rush to our side as long as they know that we are in the forefront of the battle to protect liberty and justice in this country. Thank you all very much for doing your part.